Many people around the holidays are looking for those picture perfect pictures and moments that sometimes it's a lot messier than that, and just allowing the kids to feel at peace through that, I think is valuable.
The holidays are supposed to be joyful. But when you're co-parenting, they can also be stressful, emotional, and full of tough decisions. How do you protect the magic of the season while balancing schedules, traditions, and emotions? Today we're breaking it all down so you and your kids can experience peaceful, meaningful season. Welcome to Dad Central. And Dad Central is a parenting podcast to reduce stress and build confidence in fatherhood. Also, our show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. Drew, how are we doing? And I see you are in the festive season.
Yeah, I've got the tree's been up for a while. So for me it's just normal. Maybe for anyone who's just seen it, it's like, oh, you are. But festive season, wearing my Broncos hoodie as the 10-2 Broncos are getting ready for that playoff push. So yeah, it's lots of stuff going well to be excited about.
Good
What's going on with
stuff.
you, Ed?
Everything's going on. Winter has settled in. I woke up this morning to more snow, and it isn't officially winter yet as we're recording this, but it's here, it's coming. So the snow is here, and holiday season is getting here. But want to get just your preliminary thoughts about this conversation topic, co parenting through the holidays.
Okay, preliminary thoughts are that it can be extremely challenging. On the flip side, it doesn't have to be, and it can be handled really well. And so there's elements where maybe I'll speak from my lived experience. We'll talk about some of the best practices or what's really important. And ultimately, the goal here is that helping dads or parents, I guess, who are listening, to manage the holidays, which in themselves could be stressful, but to manage them in in a separation or a divorce dynamic in ways that are going to be focused on your children and what their needs are, because that's truly at this stage what matters most, and it's not always easy. So there's some of my thoughts. What about you,
Yeah,
Ed?
yeah. I just sent want to add on before we get into our first segment that holidays intensify emotions, and it's one of those times of year that things can get very intense. And also, but we want to talk about framing our conversation around child-focused decisions during the holiday season. Well, actually, all year round, but especially during the holiday season. So as we go into our first segment, Drew, let's talk about understanding holiday stressors in co-parenting.
Well, holiday stressors in general can be challenging for non co-parenting situations, right? The reality is there are usually schedules that you have to navigate. It could be part of a regular schedule. It could be part of a separation agreement or a court order. It could just be the fact that two parents with two different households need to find ways to work through that together if they don't have something on paper. And so that in itself creates stress. Often there could be travel involved. There's extended families. Sometimes there's multiple extended families as a result of family breakdown and repartnering. There's also blending traditions, what one family may have done versus now as a new blended family, or as a loss of certain traditions because it was part of the original family unit. There's expectations that children have. There's the demands. I could probably keep going, but as you can tell, it starts to add up over time. And so those are, I think, very real challenges with when you have a co-parenting dynamic around the holidays, because um, there's a lot of things pulling at you. Ed,
Also,
why don't you talk? Why don't you share more with us too?
yeah, I think really at all times, but even especially during the holiday season, because the stress can intensify, proactive communication. is really key, especially if they're a co-parenting space. It always is important to have proactive communication, but also during this time of holiday season, schedules are even changing more. And kids are off for a certain period of time. You may not be off the same amount of time. Your partner may be off a different time. Get the proactive and get that going from now until and before it's too late, and it can cause increased tension, confusion, unmet expectations. The proactive communication is even more important during this time of year. So that's what I would add on to that, that the proactive communication during the holiday season is really important. Like, we're recording this now at the beginning of December. Yeah, the communication should already be starting. Just a thought.
Yeah, and the reason being proactive is so important is because tension during the holidays, children always pick up, or tension in general, conflict in general, the children pick up on, and so that affects them. In fact, depending on how severe or significant it is, there's actually something in the it's called the DSM-5, which is essentially the mental health disorders like book for medical professionals. It's called Child Affected by Parental Relationship Distress. It's an actual diagnosable condition, and children ultimately experience sometimes physical, oftentimes many emotional related effects when there is amped up or increased tension, especially when it's over long periods of time. So when we go back to this idea of making the decisions child focused, and this is the greatest, from my perspective, the greatest challenge in family breakdown, is suspending or putting aside our own emotions or feelings, which may be extremely valid, to be able to help make decisions and behave in ways that are focused on supporting your children's best health. And so this is the greatest challenge from my perspective, and both from lived as well as what I think the research would say. So children experience the holiday stress, so that's to me the most important reason why you want to be proactive, as Ed said. But let's transition to the next, I guess, talking point.
Yeah, we want to talk about creating a child-centered holiday plan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are that this is quite hard, even though I think it's important. Um, Practically, it starts by getting ahead of things. And as Ed said, communicating. And so that means if you have it now it becomes a lot easier if you have a dictated schedule. And so that's how it is in my separation agreement. We know who's going where when, and there's really no debate. And we know that it basically alternates year after year. So it may not be your ideal this year, but guess what? Next year it switches for you. That's our situation. If you don't have that, then this is where it's important that you create that and you work together with your partner. Now, and I think it should be focused on, the children, and that's going to work together. I'm going to take a little bit of an aside and so we, as a family, we just watched The Santa Claus, way back now. It's like from 1994, Tim Allen. And Tim's a divorced dad who his son comes to his house on Christmas Eve, spends the night. There's a funny scene where the son basically, when he's about to be dropped off and his mom's about to leave, come pick me up early, as if to say, Dad's it's not gonna be a great experience. But anyways, I digress. The point being is that they navigated that based on supporting the child, but also the dynamic between those two parents at the time. And so I think you need to know and understand what the children are looking for. At certain ages, you don't really involve them in the schedule, and you have to work through that with your co-parent, which I don't think we have time to get into some of those nuances. But the reality is that the more that you can work together as co-parents to support the children, to have access to the parents and the traditions that maybe help build stability for the children, the better it is. So I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not sure I'm the best person to speak for some of these things, but we can definitely talk about best practices. And I think that would be one of the best practice.
Yeah, I'll add on to see if you can establish practical steps for building a holiday schedule, and the sooner the better. Also, managing traditions across two households, as Drew mentioned, your background as a dad, father, meal caregiver, culture may be different than your partner's. So Again, managing those expectations, managing maybe even cultural expectations, managing just the expectations, period, around Christmas time when sometimes you and your partner may be coming from two different lanes on the highway, and working together to provide practical steps during the holiday season. Again, the kids are usually have at least a at least week and a half to 2 weeks off, scheduling around their time because it's their time, it's child centered. So we start from the child and work outward. And then being flexible and being empathetic. Always important in a parenting relationship, empathy, flexibility. And as Drew had mentioned, he's given some examples on how to manage. And hey, we're not the experts here. We're just throwing some things out that have worked with either ourselves or fathers we've worked with. But again, those things, child centered, work from child centered outward in regards to making a good schedule that works as much as possible for everyone involved. Anyone you want to add? Anything you want to add to that, Drew?
Yeah. So for those tips for discussing it, listen, label any underlying emotions, and empathize is a simple sort of approach. Also, working on your communication skills to be able to say, it sounds like this is important to you, and I can understand that. However, the children may have communicated and keeping things this way. This one's really, really hard, I'd say. Um, it's hard for a co-parent, so I would just encourage you to give yourself grace, as Ed likes to say. And if I were to give myself advice going through this, well, way back when it was highly conflictual for me, uh, I would I would advise myself um, to not fight so hard and to simply just let go of some of the um, insistence on really what the children were communicating, uh, in order to reduce the amount of tension or conflict, as well as just to reduce the amount of upsetness that I created. I could say I didn't create for myself, but the reality is this person's not that I was dealing with was not going to change and was going to create conflict no matter what. So it would have been easier on myself. So I guess that's how I can offer it here is that, you know, focus on really what's better for the kids, which we've said repeatedly. So I won't say it anymore.
No problem. And our final segment, strengthening your relationship with your kids. And this is a great time to strengthen that relationship with your kids. Drew, any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'm a firm believer in creating memories with the kids. And it's also quite funny sometimes when you hear what they do remember and what sticks in their minds. It's not necessarily what you maybe thought, but um, that's also the add on to this is for me, uh, going with the flow a little bit more, right? And watching the energy of your children. If something really gets them excited and they really want to do it, then let's just go and have that experience, and see what comes of it. So you know, that's I think the guidance here is just try and make it meaningful for your children. Don't worry about it being perfect. I know many people, or at least I'm learning that many people around the holidays are looking for those picture perfect Carlton or Hallmark card uh, pictures and moments. That sometimes it's a lot messier than that, and just allowing the kids to feel at peace through that, I think, is valuable. Uh, if you can, creating rituals that travel across the two households could be very valuable and powerful for the children so that there's the least amount of disruption and change for them. So it can be an anchoring point for them that while our family unit may not be the way it was, at least we can still have these traditions that uh, hold meaning for us. And then they get to experience it together or working together with your co-parent to facilitate a way for that to happen, I think is important. And then, of course, ultimately, being as intentional as possible about creating true connection throughout the holidays, as opposed to uh, obligation or overscheduling or being pushed to the limit that creates, meltdowns or lack of sleep or lack of healthy diet that all affect our children's ability to stay regulated during the holidays. So be proactive in that perspective and intentional in ways to build the healthiest connection possible. I think are really important as far as through the holiday season. I mean, they're important all the time, but especially so during sometimes the pressure and intensity, and of course the challenge of holidays when you're co-parenting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we wind down this episode, we covered three things: understanding holiday stressors and co parenting. Then we talked about creating a child centered holiday plan. And then finally, strengthening your relationship with your kids. A few takeaways. Just want to make suggestions out there. Plan early, communicate early, and put your child's needs at the center of every decision. Then staying flexible and respectful reduces holiday conflict and improves everyone's experience. And then you can create meaningful holiday connections in both households without competing. So I just want to, before we close out, say that reaffirm the focus on your child's well being, reminder that cooperation, however imperfect, builds stronger family stability. And finally, we're going to leave it to Drew to give a resource for our listeners and family here.
Yeah, we'll provide our full-time dad, part-time kids. It's a guide for fathers who are either separated or divorced. There'll be a link in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you download that and grab the great wisdom that John Hoffman put into that booklet.
All right, that's fantastic. So, as always, I want to thank you for giving the most important thing, your time to listen or watch the Dad Central show. As always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace and take care, and we'll see you soon. Be well.